Hi, I'm Michelle Chalfant, psychotherapist, holistic life coach, and human just like you, learning to navigate life's challenges. With over 25 years experience, I teach people how to get healthy using the adult chair model. The adult chair model is where simple psychology meets grounded spirituality, and it teaches us how to become healthy adults. From anxiety and depression to codependency and relationship issues, you can use the adult chair for just about anything. Each week, I share practical tips, tools, and advice from myself and a wide range of experts on how to get unstuck, how to live authentically, and how to truly love yourself, all while sitting in your adult chair. Welcome to the Adult Chair Podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Adult Chair Podcast, where we talk all about how to be emotionally healthy adults. How are you doing with that in the middle of December, in the middle of holiday mayhem? I hope you all are practicing good adult chair habits, which means you are practicing exquisite self-care. You know, here's the thing, the more stress or the more possible stress, the more we have to prioritize self-care, which means checking in with yourself. How are you? Do you need a nap? Do you need a break? Do you need to go have coffee with somebody? What do you need in order to keep yourself in balance? You're the only one that knows that better than anybody. You've got to slow down and check in with yourself. I hope you're doing that and you're taking really good care of yourself this holiday season. In order to help you to do that, I have on the show today, Dr. Bisleen Attli. Okay, here we go. This is what she does. She is a cognitive behavioral therapy certified naturopathic doctor. I know that's a mouthful. It was a mouthful for me. Here's the thing. She is all about women's brain health. Because let me tell you something. If you want to feel emotionally in balance, there are many, many, many things to consider on how you get there. She and I had quite the show today. You know, she also grew up in a culture where mental health really wasn't talked about. So she had her own journey, which she gets into on the show, of being bullied, and then which later on led to depression and more. So you're going to want to hear her life story, which is what, of course, moved her into her current career. But we talked all about things like medication. We talked about the root cause of mental health or brain health challenges. You know, it's not just about diagnoses, but what is happening in the mind and body to make us feel this way. On the body physiological side, Dr. Attli looks at about 6 to 7 common psychological roots of disease, with everything from blood sugar to mitochondrial health to inflammation. She breaks it down so you really understand what you need to look at, what you need to do if you're not feeling well. So if you are feeling lethargic, sad, depressed, anxious, all the things, she and I got into that today. And she has some ideas for you that you might not have thought about before. She is a wealth of information. And of course, we talked about what people can do immediately to start feeling better today. So let me tell you a little bit more about her, and we're going to jump right into the show. So Dr. Bisleen Attli is a cognitive behavioral therapy certified naturopathic doctor. She's an advocate for women's health and has founded her own virtual clinic called WBH Clinic, also known as Women's Brain Health Clinic. Her mission is to teach women how to work with their brain so that they can show up in life with more confidence, time, and energy. She believes that the key to optimizing brain health is to treat the root cause. Let me tell you, music to my ears right there. I say this over and over again. We've got to get to the root cause of what's going on. No more Band-Aid approaches. So here we go with Dr. Bisleen Attli. So welcome to the Adult Chair Podcast, Dr. Bisleen Attli. It's so great to have you.
Thanks so much, Michelle. I'm so excited to be here.
I was telling you earlier that I had seen you somewhere. Maybe it was on Instagram. I don't even remember where it was, somewhere online. And I said, oh my God, get her on the show. I love what you do. And I love it so much because you and I were just talking about how so many of the studies, so much of what's out in the world is actually, and I don't think people know this, is geared toward men. And yet
Mhm.
women are trying to follow along and follow in, according to what studies show, but they're not saying the studies are actually for men. So I love what you're doing with women's brain health, specifically for women. So thank you for what you're doing in the world. So great.
My pleasure.
So tell me first about what this is, a cognitive behavioral therapy certified naturopathic doctor. That's a big mouthful. What is that? Break that down for us.
Yeah. So my education and accreditation, I became a naturopathic doctor. So for those that might not be familiar, I did a whole 4-year undergrad degree, then did a 4-year naturopathic medical school. I'm based in Ontario, Canada. So we have Canada's biggest naturopathic school in North York here.
Wow.
And as I was just going through my education, I knew I've always had a passion for the mental health side, brain health side of things. And I knew that if I wanted to pursue this career path, like I have to also have a good understanding of that mindset piece of things. A part of me wanted to go and do a whole like therapy master's after school, but I was like, you know what, that's not necessary. And after being in like 8 years of post-grad, I was like, I need a break. And so I kind of did a little shortcut, and there's a university here called Laurier University, and two professionals, they provide certifications. So I got a cognitive behavioral therapy certificate instead, where I really dove deep into cognitive behavioral therapy techniques. And so this way in my practice, I have that body piece covered, and at least I can do some cognitive behavioral therapy stuff with my patients. And if they need more support, I direct them towards therapists who have more training in that.
Love that. I love that. Love that. Okay. So let's jump into, I'd like to hear your story and then how you ended up, of course. I know you just told us what you do, but how did you end up here? I want to hear about your story.
Yeah. So I feel like my journey with mental health started when I was in high school and probably even before that. But through a series of events and things that happened to me, in middle school, I was bullied. I looked different than a lot of the other kids at my school. My background is South Asian. And that time in middle school really started to set the foundation for me to be later on diagnosed with depression when I was in high school. And at that time, really in my culture and the way that we've grown up, it's just mental health isn't really talked about a lot. And so I had no idea how to cope with all of these big feelings that I was feeling. And so me being at the age that I was experiencing these big feelings, I became this like extreme rebel. And that was the only way I knew how to handle these feelings that I was experiencing. And even today, I have to watch myself because those tendencies will come back on. And so that kind of really started my journey with mental health. So I felt like I was really forced to work on these things at an early age. Once I got into university, things started to get worse for me because now I was living away from home. I was away from my support system. And things got so bad with the depression that I actually ended up in the hospital in my second year of university. And that was really an eye-opening moment for me because I was like, gonna swear here for a second, but it was just like, shit. Like if I don't
say that word, it's okay.
I can say that. Okay,
you can
cool.
say
shit. I was like, shit, I was like, wow, I'm in this place now. And if I don't do anything differently, like I might end up here again and I might not leave this time. That's how bad things got. And so that's when my journey towards healing really began. I started to talk to different therapists and counselors. I talked to different doctors. I experimented with so many different things in university. I always joke and say that, if I put this much effort into my studies, I would have graduated with like a 5.0 GPA, which doesn't even exist. But I just got obsessed. I got obsessed with the foods to eat, how I should move my body, my sleep. And then I got obsessed with that mindset piece of things. And as I started to work on myself, I started to feel better. And then I started to feel better and better and better. And I was shocked at how good I could feel. And as I went through my journey, a couple of things I started to realize, right, is that one, a lot of our current mental health focused strategies are very much mindset based. And in university, when I started to really work on myself and into my early 20s, what really helped was when I applied that mind-body approach together, which is what really inspired me to go into naturopathic medicine, because a lot of people don't realize how they feel in their bodies has a direct impact on how they feel, how they think. right? And so that piece was really, really missing. And so that's kind of my journey with depression and what I went through. And this is why I'm so passionate just about what I do, because, you know, I work with women on an everyday basis. And when they tell me about the pain they feel, I'm just like, girlfriend, I'm there with you. I feel you, right? And I'm here as your light to show you that your life can be so much more beautiful and so much more bigger and incredible than you've ever imagined it can be. Keep working at it. And I'm here to support you and guide you and show you the way, because there is a way.
Wow. What a story. You were even in the hospital.
Yeah. I remember that day. I still remember that night like so well. My best friend who was with me there at the time was sleeping on that bed beside me to make sure that, you know, everything was okay. Yeah. Kudos to her.
Yeah. What caused you to be put in the hospital?
I actually tried to take my own life. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. That was a really, really hard, dark night. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. You know, as you're sharing your story, I have to tell you, I relate so much to your story as far as the depression goes. Because in high school, I too had depression. I too thought about taking my own life. I didn't get in the hospital, but I did many times think about, gosh, this is so hard. I don't want to do this anymore. I just don't want to do this anymore. And going into college, and same thing, but nobody knew. Right. And I hear you saying the same kind of thing. Like, I could look a certain way. I had the boyfriend. Like, I looked like that would be the furthest thing that would be going on with me. But inside, I call it functionally depressed. Like, yeah, I was functioning just fine, but inside I was not. I was really in a bad place. So yeah. And I was able to also turn my whole entire life around in a natural way. And again, I want everyone to hear me right now. I'm not anti-meds. I'm not saying to drop your med. I'm not saying that at all. But for myself, when I was, I think 21, I'd come home from college because I was spontaneously crying. I was having really, really bad thoughts. And I ended up going to a psychiatrist, and he was like, here you go. And this is a long time ago. This is like in the 90s. And I filled out like this questionnaire, like, I don't know, 50 questions or 100 questions or something. He goes, yep, you're depressed. Here's your Prozac. Take this sample and then get a prescription, and then you'll be fine. And I was like, wait, what? Isn't there more? So I tried that for 3 days, and it just gave me the worst headaches. I'm really sensitive to even Advil. Like, I'm sensitive to everything. So, so that was my journey. And that was the day I remember. I can still see it was one of those little manila envelopes, but like 3 inches long with a Prozac in it. And I said, I can still see myself. And I'm like, I know. It was like an intuitive hit. It was like, I know there's another way to do this. And that was the day this quest inside of me like ignited. And I'm like, I will find another way. I will figure this out in another way. And I too turned my whole life around. So I am so, first of all, grateful that you're with us today. And I love hearing your journey. And thank you for being vulnerable, because I think that is so powerful for other people to hear your story. So thank you for that too.
I wanted to add one piece to the antidepressant, which I probably should have mentioned when I was saying my story, but I actually went on antidepressants for about 10 months. And it was one of those things where, you know, it was at the beginning of my journey. I didn't know any of the other options that existed. And even to this day, I am, as a naturopath, you know, I'm not against using it. I think that antidepressants can be a helpful tool to help you really decrease the intensity of the symptoms. But I always say that if you're going to go on them, then you should more than ever during this time be honing down on your strategies, optimizing the diet, working on the mindset piece of things so that you can eventually come off them, because that's how they're supposed to be used. Right. And a lot of people forget about that. And then I also do have to admit, right, depending on the severity of the type of mental illnesses that you have, sometimes that is your only option. Like I can say for some types of schizophrenia, right? Or if you have really extreme bipolar disorder or some of those other illnesses, like sometimes that is the only option. And I think it's so important that we don't shame ourselves for our choices that we make.
Yes, I agree. I agree with you.
Because sometimes, you know, I work with women who are just like, they're so busy. They have kids, they have multiple jobs, and they have so many things going on. And it's just really not realistic for them to work on these strategies and do these things. So for a little while, medication is really the only option that they have. And I think that's okay.
I 100% agree. There's such a stigma, when I think there's so much shaming, like you said, when people say, oh my God, like if there's an embarrassment, I'm like, please don't be embarrassed. Who cares? Like, let it go. But do be mindful about what you're doing. And I think that some people use, I mean, even let's face it, we have a headache, we reach for an Advil or a Tylenol or something, and we want it just to be gone. So we do the same thing with these meds. What I want people to do is just to invite in some mindfulness around what we're doing, right? Versus this quick fix. We like quick fixes, we have microwaves and fast food because we want to do something fast. But your body and your mental health can truly be changed with effort and all those things that you just said. But I'm not opposed at all to people taking meds. I don't have any problem with that whatsoever. And I, as a therapist, when I had my practice, I remember saying to people that with bipolar or depression, or even anxiety, hey, this might be an option for you. Let's look into this because you need that bump. You need that little bit of hope. You need something to balance you out temporarily. And then let's keep working though on this. So thank you for sharing. That's really important.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the mindset root cause of brain health challenges. What happens? Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So something that I'm really big on emphasizing is addressing the root cause of brain health challenges. Mm-hmm. And so, I don't even look or really consider a diagnosis that someone even comes in with. I think, of course, it's important to have because it's nice to get an explanation of what am I feeling? Mm-hmm. Where does this fit into? Yeah. Right. But whether someone has anxiety or depression or schizophrenia mm-hmm. or bipolar disorder, mm-hmm. my big thing is, what the heck is happening in your body that is causing you to feel this way? Yeah. And not even just the body, but the mind. And so whenever I work with any of the women that I work with, I always say that we're looking at two root causes. There's the mindset root cause and the body root cause. We can talk about that after. But when it comes to the mindset piece of things, the number one thing I work on helping women uncover are their limiting beliefs.
Love it.
It is the transformations that I have seen when women finally start to see mm-hmm. the beliefs that they have built about themselves and the world around them.
Yep.
Because ultimately, we are always going to bring ourselves back down to the level of worth that we believe we deserve to be at. Mm-hmm. And that is our limiting belief. That is the I am not good enough. I am not loved. I am flawed. I am weak. Yep. And all of these beliefs form at a very, very early age, right? As early as, in 5, 6, 7, 8. And this also brings in that childhood stories piece of things, mm-hmm. right? Working on that inner child. Mm-hmm. And when you have a situation happen to you at that young of an age, right? And we know with kids, the world revolves around them, right? Mm-hmm. It's not that mommy can't play with me because she needs to make dinner. It's that mommy doesn't want to play with me because she doesn't love me. Right. It's just how the mind just works, how they make sense of the world. And that's what we do as kids. And then what starts to happen is that this belief starts to form at that very first event. And then as we move through life, we experience more situations and events, and the belief just continues to get reinforced over and over and over again. And then we as adults find ourselves in these patterns where we're attracting the same situations. We feel triggered by the same things. We attract the same type of partners and people into our life. And we're just like, what the heck is happening? Yeah. Right. And it's because that limiting belief is coming out, and subconsciously you find a way to pull yourself back to that because that's all you've ever known.
Right.
So I find that uncovering that is a huge, huge piece about healing and moving forward, especially when it comes to that mindset piece.
You're speaking my love language.
Right. I've worked with so many women and they're like, I go to therapy and my therapist, they don't talk about these things.
Oh my God. This is why I created the adult chair coaching program. This is what I teach my coaches to do. Yeah. We go into the heart of these exact issues. This is how I always worked for 20 some years with clients. You've got to hit the limiting beliefs. We do tons of parts work, inner child work. We go after limiting beliefs. We look at triggers. We build self-worth. That's what we do. That's what my whole program is all about. So you are speaking my language, and I cannot tell you how many people have gone to therapists and then come to one of my coaches and they're like, I got more out of this one session than in my therapy for 10 years. I'm like, because you've got to look at limiting beliefs. You've got to go after the heart of the issue, exactly like you're saying. So thank you. I love this. So I agree. we've got to get to the childhood. It's not just talking about what's going on right now. You've got to figure out what the heck, where is that programming that's causing you to show up in your current life as you're doing, and you got to go back in time and find it. But talk to us about the physiological root causes of some of these issues, like depression, like anxiety, like all of the things.
Yeah. So with the body, similar to the mind, body, there's a bit more. I'm always looking at about 6 to 7 physiological root causes from, honestly, where pretty much all disease stems from.
Yeah.
So going through these, so whether someone comes to me for anxiety, depression, whatever it is, again, there's not only is there stuff happening in the mind, but we also have to understand that there are dysfunctions happening in the body that are causing you to feel how you feel. It's not all in your head. And I think that's so important to understand too, because sometimes we start to feel like our brain is broken. What's wrong with my mind? It's not working well. But sometimes it's actually your body that needs that support so everything in the mind can work right. And so with the women that I work with in my practice, I do blood tests so that we can really see how the body is functioning. And I'm testing for markers that kind of help me rule out these physiological root causes. So number one, a huge one is blood sugar dysregulation. Huge. This one is so overlooked as well, because when you go get a regular blood test done from your doctor, they usually check only 2 markers. One of them is the HbA1c, and that is more of your long-term marker for your blood sugar levels and checking that health. And then the other piece they're checking is really your fasting glucose levels. And that's just testing your blood sugar level in that one moment. The big pieces that we're missing here is one, your insulin, right? So that is the hormone your pancreas releases that allows your body and your organs to uptake that glucose. I feel like maybe I should go into the science of that a little bit more in case someone doesn't understand. But whenever you eat anything sugary or carby, your body breaks it down into a molecule called glucose. This glucose then goes and floods your bloodstream. Now, if that glucose stays too long in your bloodstream, your body's going to die, right? So your body doesn't want that. And as a result of that, it causes your pancreas to release a hormone called insulin. Insulin will then go and bind to receptors at the brain and organs, at muscle cells. And this allows those organs and muscles to take up glucose, which then brings your glucose down in your bloodstream. What can happen now over time is if you have irregular eating patterns, if you binge eat, if you eat a lot of carby, sugary, processed foods, right? Which is most of us right now. These insulin receptors actually start to become insensitive to that insulin, right? So if your pancreas is continuously pumping out insulin, imagine like pressing a remote control button over and over and over again. That button's going to break over time. Same thing happens to these receptors. Then what starts to happen is that to compensate, your pancreas releases even more insulin. And then ultimately what starts to happen is that no matter how much insulin the pancreas releases, the blood sugar levels don't go down. And now we have diabetes. So our healthcare system is great at catching diabetes, but we don't catch the lead up to that, which is what most of us are actually in. Insulin resistance, about like 80 to 90% of the population is insulin resistance, which is huge. And what we know with brain health, right? We call Alzheimer's dementia, type 3 diabetes. Because what can happen is that if you have too much glucose in your bloodstream, now you have these glucose molecules running around. They then go attach to other molecules. That's a process called glycation. And in your brain, that actually is what leads to amyloid beta plaque buildup. So this is by far the number one thing that I'm addressing. And we also know, if your blood sugar levels all over the place, guess what's following? Your emotions, right?
Absolutely.
So it's so important to look at.
I want to hear from you. What happens when the blood sugar is not stable? I'm going to say for myself, and again, I didn't know this when I was growing up. But now, again, nobody talked about it way back when, but this blood sugar idea is so new, but I've been following this for the last few years, and I track my diet, and I have found, again, not everyone, this is why I have you on today. Eating in a certain way affects your mood. You will find you are less anxious, you're less moody, less depressed, less sad when you monitor blood sugar, and you've got to regulate that. I myself know, I found that, of course, when I eat, and I'm gluten-free, mostly like 99% of the time, but when I eat like my gluten-free pasta, and I'm thinking, oh, this is so good. I'm going to have for dinner gluten-free pasta with maybe some shrimp and whatever, cannelloni beans or something like that. Let's just say, right? With some tomatoes. Healthy, right? Very healthy. I would be on the couch within an hour, like in some sort of like carbohydrate coma. My husband will call it that. He's like, "Are you in a carbohydrate?" I'm like, I need a nap. I need a nap. Just hang on. But when I started learning about blood sugar a few years ago, I'm like, wait a minute. When I eat that salad prior to eating and I'm thinking this is so healthy, right? But when I eat a salad prior to eating this gluten-free pasta and all the veggies that I'm putting in there and the protein, I'm not tired. What do you know? So anyway, a couple of years ago, my sister actually got me like a blood sugar, or a continuous glucose monitor that I wore. Yeah. And she's a dietitian and a nutritionist. So we love this stuff. And I'm like, oh my God. Or taking a 10-minute walk after you eat. Nobody knows these things. Completely affects our mood. So you want to add to that, because this is something we really need to educate people on for sure. What else do you want to say?
Totally. Yeah. So before I get into kind of the specific blood sugar dysregulation things that can happen, just to add to that, I just wanted to say, when we have negative thoughts and emotions, we're so quick. Again, we go to like, what's happening in my mind, right? What's happening in my mind? Did someone say something to me? Whatever, right? But it's like, do a checklist of things. And that checklist of things that you go through as to why I'm feeling this way should include, what did I eat? Did I even eat? Right? If you haven't eaten for the past 10 hours, guess what? Your body needs food. You're probably in a hypoglycemic state. Right? Have I moved my body? Have I slept enough? Right? And again, we forget to check in to see, does our body need support? And again, we're just so quick to blame our mind. So just wanted to add that for anybody listening. Make sure that next time you're not feeling your best, yes, go through what's happening in your mind and situations, and did someone say something to you, but also look at these other factors. Yeah. What did I eat? Did I move? Did I sleep well? Because all of those things play a role. And then when it comes to our blood sugar specifically, so many symptoms can point to this, right? So anxiety is a really, really big one too. Like if you're just starting to feel really anxious, irritable, starting to feel angry. I also find that brain fog, lack of concentration, right? Like I hear this all the time. I eat lunch and then I can't focus anymore. And I'm like, okay, let's start with, what are you eating at lunch? Right? You're having that crash afterwards. Let's talk about it. Right. So those tend to be the biggest ones, like irritability, anger, feeling anxious, or even just more stressed out in general. And if you're feeling like you have brain fog or can't concentrate, look at the foods that you are eating.
100%. I know, like I've learned, because I have actually kept a journal, just with my food, like a food diary kind of thing. And I know, like, a little itty bitty teeny tiny piece of caramel. And I'm not really a sugary person. I'm more of a carb, like give me potatoes and all those things, potatoes, pasta, popcorn, but a little itty bitty piece of caramel, like if it's in a piece of chocolate or something, I will crash like nobody's business. My anxiety goes up. I feel like I have major ADHD. Like it's amazing when I started tracking my food intake, how it affected our moods and my mental clarity. Talk about brain fog. I wouldn't even know what my name was. I'm like, wait, I'm so out of it, like spaced out completely. So this is huge. Let's just talk about, you also talk about like gut health, and, there's a gut brain connection. So talk a little bit about that in general, more than just the blood sugar.
Yeah. Another really, really big one I look at in my practice, your gut impacts everything. And a lot of us don't know this, but some of our biggest neurotransmitters like serotonin, 95% of it's produced in the gut. That's your happiness hormone. GABA is your calming neurotransmitter. That's your gut also produces that. And we know that your gut is closely linked to regulating your blood sugar levels. Your gut is linked to your liver and your liver health. Right. And your gut, I mean, that's ultimately the place where you're eating foods and you're supposed to be absorbing nutrients. So if your gut isn't functioning well, you're not absorbing any of the nutrients. And if you look at the pathways of serotonin, dopamine, these neurotransmitters, we need so many nutrients in order to make these hormones. So if you're not able to appropriately absorb the nutrients from your gut health, from your gut, you're not making any of these hormones and neurotransmitters in the amounts that you should be able to. So your gut plays such a big role. And, when you get stressed or anxious, like you might even notice, like you feel it in your gut, right? Like I know for me, I get really bloated. I feel heavy. I might get crampy. right? So it's a bi-directional relationship between your gut and your brain. And your gut actually has its own nervous system called the enteric nervous system that communicates directly with your brain. We know that the vagus nerve, which is your 10th cranial nerve, goes all the way from your brain and it attaches to your intestines, right? And this is the main nerve that's responsible for putting your body into that parasympathetic calming state, which is also why eating makes us feel so calm, right?
Yeah.
This is why we tend to turn towards food sometimes when we feel stressed, because it activates that right nervous system in our body. But so many connections between our brain health and our gut health.
Oh, I love this. What about liver? How would we know if our liver is not healthy? Talk about poor liver health too.
Yeah. So this one I don't see as much, but I also find that sometimes it is one that tends to be overlooked. So there's definitely blood tests that we can do to look at our liver enzymes and see how they are functioning. Although keep in mind though, fatty liver disease, you can't always see it on blood tests as well, right? So a lot of this sometimes is symptom based. Like if I have a woman who has a lot of hormone dysfunctions, she might be like sensitive to a lot of fragrances and things like that, right? So that kind of points to like the detox pathways not working well. We know that our gut health and our liver health are closely linked together. Our liver health is also responsible for regulating our blood sugar levels because our extra glucose actually goes and gets stored in the liver.
Yeah.
Right. So this one's a bit, it's kind of harder to look at unless there's like clear enzymes kind of pointing out when you do the blood test. So I use it in combination based on looking at like, is this person able to kind of detox things well, or are they allergic to like everything they touch, right? And they are really, really sensitive to different things because it means that things in the liver aren't functioning as well. The liver and gallbladder are closely linked and they help us to digest our fat, right? Because of the bile that's released. So if someone is constantly eating these like fatty foods, right? And sometimes it can be healthy fats, but their body's not able to digest it properly. They feel worse after, pointing to the liver needs support.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So that one's not as clear cut.
But you said something really important. And I know for myself, because I've done some genetic testing around my liver, and my liver detox does not work very well, phase 1 and 2. Yeah. And I notice, and you said something important, which is then our hormones don't get cleared from our system, as well as all the other toxins and everything else. And I think for women too, we get so clogged up with hormones. I would not have known it unless I did this test. Right. Yeah. So when we are not able to balance our hormones, or our hormones are all over the place, or if you're in perimenopause and you're having all these hot flashes, it's like, how well are you detoxing that liver? That's really, really, really important to look at. What about the mitochondrial dysfunction? I mean, that's the energy center of the cells. What do you say to somebody that's like just fatigued all the time?
Yeah, huge one. I think the mitochondrial dysfunction piece it's coming up more and more in research on. People are starting to talk about it, which is awesome because this is a big one. Like I talk to people and they're like, oh, what the heck is this? Right. And I'm like, this is literally what keeps you alive and where you get all your energy from. So for those people that might not be familiar, all of you have little cells in your body. And in these cells, you have multiple organelles called mitochondria. And they're specifically responsible for producing your energy. And if we are someone who's been through a lot of stress and trauma, I see this very commonly, especially women that have had traumatic brain injuries, that mitochondria for sure need support in that area. When it comes to fatigue, the mitochondria is something I look at. But I also try to see if they need support just with nutrients, getting the rest a bit more before I fully jump into that mitochondria place. The other thing too is that it's hard to test to see if your mitochondria is dysfunctional, right? So a lot of this, again, is based off of symptoms. At least I know in Ontario, Canada, as a naturopath, I'm very, very limited to how we kind of get to that place. And I use it really based off of symptoms. It might be different in America. Not sure about that. But yeah, mitochondria is a really, really big one, especially when you are tired, you have brain fog, if you've had some sort of traumatic brain injury. I know with one of my patients who had a traumatic brain injury, I put her on a mitochondrial formula supplement and like her headaches, brain fog were gone in like 2-3 months. And she'd been working on her concussion symptoms for like a year and these hadn't improved. Right. Wow. So really important to look at.
Wow. I love that. So what else do you see when you really work with someone? Like, what are some of the typical clients or patients that you have in your practice?
Yeah. So I see a lot of women, anxiety. Anxiety is
Yeah.
definitely a really, really big one.
Mm-hmm.
I see a lot of anxiety, depression. I see OCD as well. I like to see OCD as like very extreme form of anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I have had a couple of bipolar and then schizophrenic cases that do tend to be a bit more complex. But yeah, but
Mm-hmm.
with any of these illnesses, right? I remember when I first started off practicing, I would look at the diagnoses and based on the diagnoses try to create a plan. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that was that wasn't the right way to go about it at all.
Right.
Right,
Right.
because I'm not here to treat the diagnosis, I'm here to treat the root cause.
Absolutely.
And so when I started addressing these things, it's like, okay, you have this diagnosis, you have these symptoms, and based on that, let's do the appropriate blood work. And then oftentimes what I'll see, it's a combination of they need support with the gut health. They need to make sure their blood sugar is more regulated,
Mm-hmm.
right? Those
Mm-hmm.
tend to be the big, and then inflammation is another one as well. So
Mm-hmm.
I see a lot of those three things in combination. And a lot of symptoms stem from that when it comes to the brain health piece of things.
So what would be a symptom of someone that has inflammation?
Yeah, so a lot of these symptoms do overlap. I feel like I've said a couple of these already, a couple of times in the
Yeah.
podcast. But a sign of inflammation, brain fog is a really big one, right?
Yeah.
Just feeling like I can't think, concentration.
Mm-hmm.
Fatigue can be another one as well. So
Mm-hmm.
those tend to be kind of the biggest ones. Yeah, when the brain fog piece, when someone says that just sticks out, I'm just like, we got some sort of level of inflammation. And then I also look at inflammation in other areas of the body too, right? Because we
Mm-hmm.
know that inflammation can be transient and it's not like it stays in one area. It often travels to other areas of the body.
I think about too, and I don't, I'm guessing you see this, like even physical, like joint pain or some sort of achiness in the muscles and things like
Exactly.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So all of those point to inflammation, and it's just like, okay, you have inflammation in your joints, but it doesn't mean
Mhm.
it can't go up to the brain, right?
So if someone's listening today and they're thinking, oh my gosh, I want to start making some changes today, what would you just give us like a couple of things or three things that people can start, even without having a blood work or anything like that? What are some things that are really important for people to change today?
Hmm. It's funny you said without the blood work because I was honestly going to be like the first thing is like get your blood work done.
Yeah. Well, okay. So yeah. So if they wanted to get their blood work done, what do they need to get done to find out what's going on with them?
Yeah. So a lot of the blood work that I tell my patients to do is based off of the symptoms and stuff that they're experiencing.
Mm-hmm.
But in general, just go get a general blood work done because you'll
Yeah.
be surprised the amount of women that I see. And I'm like, was your last blood work? And they're like 5 years ago.
Oh
And I'm
wow.
like,
Yeah.
like you should be at
Mm-hmm.
least getting your general basic blood work done on a
Mm-hmm.
yearly basis, right? And
Yeah.
right now it's November. So, like, if you live in a place where it gets cold, please go check your vitamin D levels, right?
Yeah.
Because it's simple, small things, but they make such a big difference in how we feel,
Yep.
right? Thinking what else?
Sleep. I'm going to say sleep.
Sleep. I was honestly just about
7 to 9 hours.
to
Let's
sleep.
go, everybody.
Yeah, sleep is a really, I'm not going to lie, I'm sometimes not the best at getting that. But when I look at the hierarchy of things of sleep, movement, diet, and this is just based off of my opinion, I truly think like sleep is like number one. Because I
Yeah.
feel like when you're well rested, you have enough
Mhm.
energy, you tend to make better choices about your food that you eat. You tend to be more motivated to want to move your body. And that
Yeah.
rest piece is so important to get. So that's definitely another really, really big one. Thinking what else?
Blood sugar. They need to really look at what sugar carbs intake. What do you
Yeah,
think?
for sure. I think that's another really big one too. And I mean to simplify that even more, when it even just comes to the foods that we eat and we make, I often find that right, the first thing we think about is like, okay, what carbs am I going to eat? Right? Even when
Mhm.
you, Michelle, were sharing like, okay, I'm
Yeah.
gonna make my dinner. Okay, I'm gonna get the gluten-free pasta, right?
Yeah.
And it's
I'm going to
just
be
like,
so healthy.
yeah. And it's like we center our meals around our carbs, right? Because
Yeah.
that's what we've been taught. But it's
Yeah.
like, let's start thinking about things differently. Let's have carbs almost be like a sprinkle on top of a cake And instead, think about first thing should be, what are the vegetables that you're going to eat? And I
Yes.
always say half our plate should be vegetables, at least to 80 to 90% of our meals, because balance is important too. And then really shaping our meal around the vegetables and the proteins and the healthy fats. And then being like, okay, I got all of the bases covered. Okay, what carbs do I want to eat and add to this?
Just a little bit. And I
Just
love, and I don't know who said this or where I read it, but I'm sure a lot of people at this point, but just taking a 10-minute walk after dinner is life changing. There's no more fatigue for me. There's no more brain fog. I feel better. Yeah. And again, it's because the body is burning all that glucose. I mean, the body is digesting and metabolizing everything I just ate, and I don't have that sugar crash. So therefore my mood is more stable now. I mean, it's been a game changer. Just 10 minutes of walking, and we walk down the street with the dogs and 100%. We come home and done. It's like a 10 or 15-minute walk.
Yeah. Yeah. And it doesn't take much, right? And I think that's the other big thing too. Like a lot of the women that I work with and I built their treatment plan, and they're like, oh, like this is it, right? I was like, yeah. I was like, good health isn't magical. It's not magical. It's just doing the simple things consistently on a daily basis and make sure you are prioritizing them. And to be honest with you, I feel like this is such a big thing with women, like to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Right? We get so caught up in taking care of other people. And with the women that I work with, it's not even just telling them about the right supplements and the diet, but it's just like, okay, let's take a look at your schedule. When are you going to schedule time for yourself and make yourself be a priority in your life? Because I have so many women who, really want to take care of themselves, but it seems like everything comes in front of it. Before. Exactly. Yep. Exactly. And I think, you have to take care of yourself, because that is ultimately how you show up as the best version of yourself for the people around you. And I also think, if you have little kiddos, right, you set that standard of health for them. Do you want them to have that standard of health where it's just like we sacrifice ourselves for everybody around us? Or do you want to create that standard of health and show them by embodying it yourself, this is what it looks like to take care of yourself, no matter how busy life gets?
I say that all the time when people ask me, they're like, how do I help my children? I'm like, model behavior, model excellent emotional, mental care, model how to eat healthy, model this for them versus sitting down and telling them, just live that way. And I think that you said something really important, which is, it's not selfish to put yourself first. It's actually self-loving. So we need to put ourselves first. It's that old saying, like, if the plane's going down, you got to take the oxygen first. You're going to be a better person if you're healthier mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually first. You can help so many more people. You can connect with more people if you're healthy from that perspective. So this was so good. Thank you so much. So where would people find you? Give us, what do you got going on, and where can people find you?
So I have recently rebranded a lot of things, which is why I haven't been showing up on a lot of different socials right now. But I'm pretty active on Instagram. That's probably my biggest platform that I'm the most active on. You can find me at Holistic Brain Doctor. I am starting a podcast shortly, so stay tuned for that. It's going to be called the Hot Girl Brain Club.
Love it.
I'm taking, we're kicking off Hot Girl Summer, and we're bringing in Hot Girl Brain. That was a way I really want to get just like younger women caring about their brain health sooner, because the things that you do in your 20s and 30s is what sets you up later in your 50s and 60s. And I feel like not enough of us are thinking about it now, or unless we have some sort of major issue that forces us to think about it.
Yes, for sure. I agree. Well, no one teaches us this stuff. Like, we go through school. Who's talking about brain health? Unless, again, you're going to go to school for that in college, but who's talking about this in high school? I look at, we could go on a big tangent right now, but like school lunches, it's like, oh my gosh, it's horrible. Talk about carb heavy. Of course, these kids are sleeping in the afternoon. They can't learn anything, but that's all other tangents. So.
Yeah. 100%. And of course, like all of them have ADHD, that's the whole...
Or do they? That's the question though.
That's what I mean.
They? Or
or
is it that they're eating all the wrong foods? So, and this is so important. So thank you for all that you're doing. Best of luck with your podcast. And thanks for being on today.
Yeah. Thank you so much. It was great.
I hope that you enjoyed that show today. Let me know how you liked it. Hit me up on social media. I am on Facebook and Instagram. I'd love to know what are the takeaways from the show today? What did you learn in today's show that might help you with your own mental or emotional health? What things can you do? Is it sleep? Is it perhaps something with your liver? What is it? Blood work, watching your carbs? What might it be? I'm curious to know. Let me know. And that's all I've got for you guys today. Have a wonderful rest of your week, and I will see you seated right here next week in the Adult Chair.